Hello, my name is Dan Johnson and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing a brand new Big Finish release. Now, this was a delayed release. It was supposed to come out in July, just after I did that last day review. It was quite ironic, actually. I finished that video, I wanted to do more, and then there hadn't been any for about 3 weeks until now. Deathworld is an alternate Three Doctors where this script was written and it was due to be filmed, but because of William Hartnell's health, the story never actually came to fruition, and we got Three Doctors in which he's in a sort of pyramid the entire time, and there's a lot of sort of physicality um, that at the time William Hartnell would not have been able to do um, in real life. It does feel like this one has had some creative license taken with it. They've swapped the president of the Time Lords, presumably from a male to a female. They have taken license in the fact that this is sort of like a prequel to the Three Doctors now, rather than being an alternative, which is not something I'm particularly on board with because I feel like this story lessens for the fact that this is like half the battle. To say that we're going to pair up our Three Doctors for an epic battle and then just say, well, we'll do this again another time. This is the prelude to the battle. Um, Felt a bit weird to me. The Three Doctors are summoned by the Time Lords in a sort of game of chess against death, which is a really fun idea. And they are put into this realm of death, as it's described, with Joe, Jamie, and the Brigadier. And then they go through the story encountering evildoers or sort of variations of death. It's very difficult to describe how I feel about this story because there's something that just feels very comfortable about it. It feels very Series 10. It feels very much of the 70s in that respect. And I found the whole story really fun to listen to and kept going back to listen to for this review. It didn't feel like I was going through with a critical eye. I just felt like I was enjoying the story each time I went through it. And for that, I've just thought that this story worked really well. The pacing of it is really good. I think that the characters work really well. The ending, where you have sort of this heart to heart between these characters, I really enjoyed. The whole thing just seems to balance itself out really well. It's also quite theatrical and playful with its dialogue. I think there is one moment when I feel like it sort of does fall down a little bit during episode 2 or 3. I think it's 2, in which um, essentially all three doctors are separate and all come to the same conclusion, and they kind of do like a rinse and repeat where each doctor realizes what the problem is, and it's exactly the same problem 3 times in a row, and it's kind of like one scene after another. And that, I think, is probably the weakest point of the episode, just for the fact that you know we're seeing it again. Um, but the pacing, particularly the fourth episode that I won't spoil, I just felt like that worked really well. And I feel like we should talk about our doctors. We have Tim Trelaw playing the third Doctor and has done for quite a long time. And the voice that he does, the impression, but also adding his own sort of spin to it, I think is really brilliant. David Troughton as the second Doctor, once again, I think brilliant. The image I generate in my head is always the second Doctor, and I feel like he's really got down the playfulness of that Doctor, and it's something that where the dialogue as well has helped him with that performance and giving him those lines to say, and he's very much the comic relief as he is in the Three Doctors. Then for the first Doctor, there was something that took me a little while to get used to it because I've heard these Doctors before, um, but Stephen Noonan as the first Doctor is something that I've not really listened to because I'm not a massive fan of the first Doctor. And I do think that stories do tend to struggle with the first Doctor because you want to be sort of abrasive, but there's also a sense of warmth, a sense of sort of being a granddad in that respect. There's sort of this two-hander going on where you have this very dark idea of the Doctor and this sort of grumpiness, and then at the same time this lightness and this sense of humour. And I think that the script plays that off very well, but it did take me a little while to sort of get behind the first Doctor. But the more I thought about it, I still generated the image of the first Doctor during the story when I heard the voice, and I do think the first Doctor is a very, very difficult Doctor to play because there is so much within that performance that William Hartnell wasn't even aware he was doing. Moments of warmth and there's moments of sort of cattiness, and I think there's a lot of cattiness. And I think right at the end there's a little joke they put in that I won't spoil, but I think that that moment in that fourth episode is very first Doctor, and I thought, you know what, I am sold by Stephen Noonan as the first Doctor. I'd also like to point out Joe Shire, who plays Death, I think does a really good job. There is this sort of hauntingness to the voice, this darkness, this sort of wiseness, and it's a really scary performance. It works really well in this story, and I think that's why I do keep coming back to it. As I mentioned briefly before, I also come back because each time that I listen to it, I'm picking up little bits of performance from each companion and Doctor dynamic. They pair the first Doctor and the Brig together for a while, which is mostly comic relief and sort of that sort of cattiness coming through. But there's also a really nice moment when the third Doctor sees Jamie again. It's good that they haven't just sort of thrown these characters together. They've given them a point. They've put them in there, and they've given them something to say about each other's relationships, and I like that. The way I sort of judge my reviews at the end is I think, was I satisfied? Do I think that this was worth the money that I spent on it? And I definitely do. I'm going to be listening to this episode a lot, I think. I have really enjoyed listening to it over the last week or two. The script particularly has that sort of bounciness to it that makes a 4-part story feel light and makes it fun to listen to again and again. I don't appreciate the idea that this is a prequel to the Three Doctors. I don't feel like that is how these things should be interpreted. I think they should be seen as this is Deathworld, which could have been our 10th anniversary special, but wasn't. These are supposed to be lost stories, not adding to lore and all this sort of stuff. And also, I think it sort of cheapens both stories in the fact that the Three Doctors coming together was a huge event. And to say, oh, they did it like some time before, but they forgot, is cheapening that idea. If you enjoy the Three Doctors, I definitely think you're going to enjoy this story. The dynamics are pretty much spot on. I also think this story benefits from being in the audio medium because I think it makes the scale of everything bigger. You know, we go to war zones and we go to big castles, big Gothic castles, and all sorts, a whole realm, for example. And I think that picturing that in your head is way better than it would have been if they actually tried to make it in the show in the 70s. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure you give it a like, subscribe. If you are new, let me know what you thought of Deathworld and if there's any releases that you are very excited for or the ones that you'd like me to review. I'm always happy for some recommendations. So thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.